Very good morning to you and welcome to day two. And I think it's fair to say it's a safe bet that the people who are in this room were in bed reasonably early and reasonably sober last night, whereas elsewhere in this room, there are people walking around with hangovers that you could photograph because a good night was had by many people last night. Nonetheless, we are at the beginning of day two, so let's get underway with our first presentation. Jennifer Neild is our first presenter. She's with Explorer Peak Minerals. They've recently shifted focus to its WA copper portfolio. Jennifer joins us to discuss how Peak is unlocking an unrecognized magmatic sulfide system in her portfolio. Welcome along, Jennifer.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So welcome to day two of RIU. As mentioned, I'm Jennifer Neild, and I'm here with Peak, and we're unlocking an unrecognized magmatic sulfide system. Go. So I'll just skim through this. So I'll introduce myself a little bit. I'm an exploration geologist, got my start with Falconbridge in Sudbury, Ontario. Worked for a number of explorers, but also for companies like Newmont, and worked in orogenic gold. I've worked in uranium and as well as sedimentary hosted copper. Most recently, I was with HiSeis as a geophysicist, interpreting the seismic data. So I have worked on many projects across all over the world. And I'd also like to introduce Barbara Duggan, who is also a Canadian and also got her start in Sudbury, Ontario with Inco though. But was worked for a number of companies for Panoramic, BHP, and most recently for CSA as a lithogeochemist. Barbara is considered an expert in nickel sulfides and magmatic hydrothermal systems. Okay, well, I won't read off the numbers to you because again, you can read, but we just recently did a cap raise back in October. So we have a bit of cash in the bank at 4.9 million. All right, I'll just an overview of our copper projects. So our flagship project is our Green Rocks project, which is hosting magmatic sulfides. We also have Arahidi, which is a little bit further to the south, just near DeGrussa. We have our Kimberley projects, which consist of 5 magmatic targets and 1 sedimentary hosted copper target. And then we have the Carson large tenement package, about 250 kilometers of strike, which is sedimentary hosted copper as well. All right, with our Green Rocks project, we have a very large land holding. So the main copper has been recognized for a number of years through this area. It's come up recognized along shear zones. But what wasn't recognized is that these were, there's a number of intrusions, and that's been identified through geochemistry, drilling, and geophysics. And these intrusions extend all the way up north towards Meekatharra. And we have the largest land holding in that area. We'll just continue. All right, this is a great image because it just shows that the size of the system. So we've got 250 kilometers of strike. We've got Windermere, which is this really large layered intrusive complex. And then we've got, we continue up further to the north, and we've got other vanadium titanium deposits such as Barrenby, and then you've got Gabonymphia, which is really our neighbor. And we've got other copper deposits such as Nanady, but also Lady Alma and Copper Hills. And they're all part of this Lady Alma complex, and which are Lady Alma and Copper Hills are part of the Lady Alma complex, which is, yeah, again, part of this bigger magmatic province. So the question is, it kind of looks a little bit like a ring of fire. We're not saying it is, but it does look a lot like it, and there's a lot of comparisons you can make. So we've got the bigger Windermere complex down here, and then you go look at the Thunderbird complex, and this is in Northern Ontario. So if you're familiar, you've got Noront, who's we've got Eagle's Nest, and this is like a pipe-like intrusion. up here with mineralization kind of along one side. It's actually a very small intrusion. It's actually only 75 meters by 500 meters. And the mineralization itself is only 50 meters by 300 meters. So it's quite small. And when you look at comparisons to what, what we're looking at over here in Western Australia and at the Windermere complex, again, you've got your larger complex coasting vanadium, titanium, and then you move up along, you've got a number of smaller intrusions, and we go right up to Lady Alma and Copper Hills. So these systems, this is just kind of a great schematic showing how these systems work. So Windermere is there, and it shows that it's kind of part of this this system has created this larger initial kind of layered intrusive complex, and then you get smaller, these clusters of smaller intrusions coming up, and through here, up and through here. And Lady Alma, Rickson, and Talbot, which are all on peak tenor, are part of these smaller ones. And these are kind of where we want to be because they tend to host more than the disseminated sulfides. So at Green Rocks, we've just completed some recent mapping in September, October. We went through and did a bit more of a systematic approach. So covered across from the top to the bottom here. So you can't really see a lot of those dots. Those ones don't necessarily have mineralization in them, but we haven't got all the results back, but we are seeing 49 of the 183 rock chips that were collected have malachite, azurite, and pyrite in them. So that's quite a high number. So we're looking forward to getting those results probably early in next year. So we've just also finished an air core program there as well, but I'll get to that in a second. So what was really interesting about this is that we've got evidence now of this outcrop with an intrusive, an ultramafic intrusive with copper mineralization, copper oxide along the edges, as you can see in this. As you can see in this image here, and you've got this intruding into another ultramafic. So now we have evidence that there's at least two pulses. So this is really interesting. So we can now get an idea of what the timing's like. And again, we've got another, this is a bit of an intrusive, like a finger of intrusive coming up, and it's at a shear zone. And this is how kind of the copper travels up to the surface. So you can see that the shears that are recognized at Copper Hills and Lady Alma and Rickson are really important, and that's why we're seeing all that copper on the ground. But that's what we're recognizing in the magnetics. The central areas where you've got kind of a lesser magnetic signature are probably part of the like a buried intrusion. So we're seeing the response from the sulfides and possibly alteration. So this is one of the, this is part of this is Rickson, and it's part of like the larger intrusive. So you can see these grab samples in through here are a bit older, so we are able to show them. We are not able to show some of the newer ones clearly, but you can see there's 16 rock chip samples with grades from 5 to 21%, which is pretty impressive. So that central feature in there is actually 500 meters by 275. So when I was talking about Eagle's Nest, it kind of puts that into perspective a little bit. That's actually a little bit bigger. And there's other, again, this is Lady Alma down here, Rickson in here. We're able, with all the mapping we've been able to do, we've now been able to kind of draw up a bit more of a detailed cross section. I mean, this is interpreted mineralization, but we know we must be kind of relatively close to some kind of mineralization or some kind of dense body based on some of the geophysics done. Okay, so we've got all we've got the formula here. We've got major crustal faults. So that structure traveling 22, like it's striking 22 kilometers down from Lady Alma all the way up to Talbot. We've got discrete olivine rich intrusions, which I showed a picture of, so the proof's there. We've got mafic and ultramafic lithology, so we've been able to map the succession from ultramafics into gabbro into more intermediate porphyries. And then we've also got the presence of magmatic sulfides. Not only do we have copper, but there's indications of nickel, disseminated nickel in historic results, as well as some boron. So now we just need that economic discovery. All right, when I first started, Barb and I sat down and we came up with a plan, a bit of a strategy on how we're going to approach these things, because we really, in the past, just because of a lot of changes that have been going on with Peak, we hadn't been systematic about it. So we said, how do we do this? We have, we've kind of kept to our word. So in Q3, again, did the work, confirmed this conceptual target with sampling and looking at geophysics and reprocessing what we had. And then confirmed, we're in the process of confirming the geochemistry. So we've got an air core program that just finished up. The drills, in fact, just moving off yesterday. And that should give us better indications on where we need to focus in on, because even though you have a kilometer by a kilometer, it's still actually quite a big area. And we'll refine those targets. Not only do we plan on blanketing all the Green Rocks tenure with electromagnetics, we also plan on doing a bit more of a detailed EM survey over the Rixon area, just to get a better idea on where we're going to drill. So that's the plan for the next, is to drill. Like, you just got to put your money where your mouth is, and we're going to drill it and go from there. We've got a lot of other intrusions to follow up on, as those previous maps showed. So there's we've got a lot of little things ticking along in the background. So our other assets within Australia, I've talked a little bit about them, but our copper assets are Arahidi, and up in the Kimberleys, we have multiple projects there, as well as the Carson project, which is quite a large project. And that's going to be a little bit further in the future. So we do have a plan where each of these moves along successfully. We also have Yendon project, but that's in Victoria, and it's kaolin deposit, so it's not part of our copper focus, but we are looking at what we can do with that in the future. So the Arahidi project, it's 28 kilometers east of DeGrussa, so location is everywhere, who your neighbors are. Rumble Resources is on the same basin. They're just a little bit further to the eastern end of the basin. And that hosts the lead, zinc, silver project that they're drilling, Chinook. So the copper was recognized on the surface by BHP back in the 70s, and it was followed up by CRI, but everybody has kind of walked away from this copper and not ever been able to find the primary source of the copper. Excuse me. So our focus was the Corkchee prospect over here, which is where the historic copper blanket is, and over here at Mira as well, where there's copper recognized. Sorry. All right, this is a conceptual cross section. So the important thing to know, and I'll just go back actually, because what I didn't point out here, and I should have, is that we're on this western end of this basin, and basins have to open somehow, right? So they've opened up, we've got this structure, we've got another, a number of other structures. And what we're looking at is that we think we're closer. If we've got copper and we don't have any zinc or lead in the system, then we're probably pretty close to the copper end of the system. So copper likes to precipitate out closer to that heat source. So we're saying there's a heat source somewhere down here. Fluids are traveling up, towards the.
You might need some lubrication.
I know, sorry. I don't know where it came from. All right, and copper travels up these faults and then precipitates close to the heat source, whereas lead and zinc will travel out along, the right stratigraphy and precipitate out a little bit further away in cooler parts. So we'll just continue on. So, recently, this morning we released a ASX announcement regarding the results from an air core program that occurred in June earlier this year. What you need to know is that this is the copper blanket in here that was known prior. So in order to, we just needed to confirm because some of the logs were missing from the historical staff, needed to confirm that, confirmed with 4 meters at, 4 meters at 1.2% and 1 meter at 4.1%. But what's really interesting is that a new Gossan was recognized further to the south, and this extends that copper blanket even further. But what's really great is it's deeper. It's not just 20 meters of secondary mineralization. It's a little bit deeper, and we're starting to get closer to that primary mineralization that we're looking for. And again, this is probably my last slide here. So our Kimberley projects, quite extensive. We've got McGowan, Lamboo. What's really important to know, we're just trying to show, is that magnetics has a series of those, we've got these intrusions, and McGowan, Lamboo, etc. 10 minutes, they're all kind of within on these intrusions. We pegged the ground, and very proximal to Lamboo right here, which is well known. And the other thing is we released an announcement a little while ago, which had showed that there's 3 Gossans and samples were ranging from 5 to 21% copper there. So that's really promising for this ground. So that's all I've got. If you have any other questions, I probably haven't done it justice. We've got Barb Duggan, who's here, our chief geologist, and again, myself, you can ask anything. So. There we go.
Thanks, Jennifer. Rincon Resources is a copper gold explorer with interests in 3 highly prospective copper and gold projects in WA, namely South Telfer, Laverton, and Kiwikura. Rincon are currently drilling at its flagship South Telfer copper gold project, where it continues to define copper gold mineralization at the Hastings prospect, just 12 k's south of the Telfer gold mine in the Paterson province of WA. Managing Director Gary Harvey joins us now with the rest of the story. Gary.
Thanks, Jerry. Welcome everyone, and thanks for having me here today. So as you can see, we're targeting high impact gold and copper exploration projects, predominantly in Western Australia. That we're certainly not limited to Western Australia. Disclaimer, encourage you to read that when you have time. Snapshot of the corporate overview. Rincon, as we've stated, we want to acquire highly prospective projects near existing and prospective mining operations, apply our technical expertise, and discover and grow commercial mineral deposits to create value for our shareholders. Market dynamics there on the left-hand side, 51 million shares. We floated 12 months ago, pretty much to date. We raised $6 million at float, 20 cents. We've got $3.4 million in the 10. We've been fairly aggressive over the last 12 months, and we're about to start our second phase of drilling at Telfer next week. So, which is a really great time of the year to be up at Telfer, but nonetheless, that's the way we work. Board executives have got a good blend of technical expertise, 2 geologists on the board, and a mix of corporate and financial non-executives. So our 3 key projects, South Telfer, Kiwikura and Laverton, spread across the region. South Telfer, as you can see, up near the Telfer Gold Mine, as you all know, Paterson region, Paterson province, a world-class province. South Telfer is our flagship project and strategically located, effectively starting from 12 kilometres south of the Telfer Gold Mine, stretching to over 50 kilometres along strike and to the southeast of the Telfer Gold Mine. So we're in a very good region and certainly proximal to one of the biggest deposits in the Paterson area. So we've got over 500 square kilometres in that region. As I said, it starts, Hastings is actually 12 kilometres due south of Telfer. Great place to have an outcropping deposit. And we're advancing Hastings as we speak. We have over 1 kilometre of strike We have 2 zones of mineralisation extending over 1 kilometre strike. And Hastie's, the main zone, is where we're focusing all our attention at the moment for obvious reasons. And we have 5,000 metres of RC and diamond drilling starting next week, as I just said. Kiwikura, this is an IOCG style copper deposit project for us, sorry. It's over 200 kilometres of tenure in the West Arunta region in Kiwikura here. So just about 600 kilometres due west of Alice Springs. Wonderful place to get to. And we have 3,000 metres of RC diamond drilling proposed to test some key targets there, hopefully starting from second quarter of next year. That's subject to all our permitting being approved to allow us to get there. And our final project, Laverton, we have over 40 square kilometres in the Laverton Gold District. Many of you will know that the Laverton Gold District is a tier 1 location for gold deposits. Very significant, very large, long life gold deposits in that region. 6 kilometres of strike that we hold under our tenure of underexplored and prospective banded iron formation stratigraphy. We completed some drilling there back in May this year, identified a number of low-level gold anomalous trends that we intend to follow up as part of our strategy going into 2022. We're going to focus predominantly on the South Telfer project. As I said, it's our flagship project. You can see here where we're located. Oh, sorry. Our tenements in red here, Telfer Gold Mine, Havieron here, 3.4, Winners up here. But this is the important thing. This is where the mill is. This is a very large mill, over 20 million tonnes per annum feed. Telfer's resource at the moment is significant, but very low grade. They're obviously looking for high grade feed, higher grade feed, which explains why they're into Havieron. And we think we might have something that will help them out with their life and mine plan. So we're trying to accelerate our activity at Hastie's. As I said, the advantage we have against other companies in the region is that Hastie's outcrops starts at surface. We've defined 2 zones over 1 kilometre, and we have mineralisation up to 50 metres wide, down to over 120 metres depth at the moment. So pretty compelling. We just need to get the extra work into it to get to a resource stage and certainly understand the economics. And hopefully we've got somewhere to put that dirt at low cost and low capex. 5,000 metres, as I said, 5,000 metres of drilling, RC diamond drilling. Purpose of this drilling is to extend now. We've defined these 2 zones. The idea is now to start extending, try and develop some scale, see how big this system could possibly be. We've got some deep targets underneath the 2 main zones, and in the centre that we've identified that we certainly want to start testing as well. So we've got EIS funding. So thank you for the government to helping us, assisting us with that drilling. And as I said, we start that on Monday. The Western prospect area, this is the larger of our 2 areas of our project. You can see there's 2 key mineralised trends here. One extending directly along strike to the southeast of Telfer. This is the main Telfer trend. We refer to it in our area as the Western Dolphy trend. And the parallel trend is our Hastie's Grace trend for obvious reasons. We've got Hastie's where we are right now. We've got the Grace deposit here where Patterson Resources have recently done their diamond drilling. And Western will start to get into this area next year. The reason we haven't got there at the moment is access. In the Patterson province, getting access is quite a laborious process, very sensitive area with the native title. So you've got to be very careful what you're doing. And there's a lot of hoops and hurdles to get through in order to get to certain areas. But nonetheless, we're getting there. But in the meantime, what we have done is some low impact, non-impact surveying, and I mean geophysical surveys. We did some VTEM surveying here earlier this year, and we had the results of that work completed and interpreted by our geophysical consultants. That data came through a couple of months ago, and we released that data, but the results essentially is a swag of VTEM targets identified, and we're very pleased that they're all seem to be associated with these trends. So that's a real positive. These purple ones are high priority targets, and going down the scale, obviously orange, red, orange, green, a bit of a traffic light there. But, and we've also got some resistivity targets as well along the Western trend. The good thing about Western is there's an existing bedrock gold and bedrock anomaly defined by previous drilling from Newcrest, which we plan to follow up as soon as we're able to get access to that area. Coming back to Western, sorry, not Western, the Hastings. This is Hastings at the moment. Now, Hastings is a known prospect. It was drilled back in the mid-90s by Newcrest. They identified obviously quite significant zones of mineralisation related to an outcropping Gossan. Newcrest went through a relinquishment phase in the early or mid-2000s. They prioritised their package, and they really held on to their core tenements, and a lot of that ground was released. Beneficiaries of that relinquishment program, you can see now with obviously Great Land and Tipa Minerals. So a lot of the companies have picked up that ground and starting to reap rewards. And we're also seeing Newcrest starting to farm back into those tenements, as you can see with the likes of the Great Land Gold and then Tipa. Perhaps we might be part of that story in the not too distant future. But our first phase of drilling at Hastings, we're really focused on following up the Newcrest data. That was important to us to understand the geometry, geology, the nature of the mineralisation, and really QA/QC, which is obviously very important. If you want to start going to JORC resources, you need that QA/QC. So we had to understand what we were dealing with, and then make sure that the Newcrest data was actually useful. We've done that, but at the same time, we've also identified extensions to the mineralisation, both at depth and east and west. And obviously there's extensions along strike, remains open to the north, remains open to the south. And our phase 2 drilling, all these yellow dots, is going to start testing the gap in between. This dotted line through here is the main anticline fold hinge, which controls most of that mineralisation, typical Telfer style or Patterson province style mineralisation. So we know we've got reef style, vertical stockwork, and breccia style mineralisation. So all the three styles of mineralisation you typically see at Telfer, we've got present at Hastings. So we think we're onto something significant. If we can start connecting these two zones over that strike, well, it's game on. And just touching on the depth potential. So part of our geophysical work that we did, we identified this, it's now known to be a dolerite intrusion. This is the surface of that intrusion in section. This is a 3D inverted model of that dolerite. Our gradient array IP that we did earlier this year has identified a conductivity target that we think sits on top of that dolerite. And certainly we've got some diamond drilling to test that. You can see here, this is the square box here is our target zone. This is the apex of that anticline fold hinge on top of that dolerite. And we'll be drilling that probably early in January. We're fairly confident. Newcrest drilled some deep holes into that and hit some low level gold on the contact here on the west side, and certainly up in the hanging walls, in the sediments in the hanging wall on the eastern side. So we think Hastings is one zone. we'd like to find another zone sitting on top of that contact there. The other thing that gives us confidence that we might be able to get something here is if any of you are aware of the Obelisk deposit by SEPA, they have mineralisation. Their deposit basically sits on the contact of one of these dolerites, just like this. So, so we think we've got a good target. We just need now to test it and prove it. And this is just a quick comparison. Hastings, our target here, compared to Minyari, which is another main deposit in the region held by Antipa Resources. You can see, our drilling's been quite limited. We've got no drilling underneath. But if you start to drill, as soon as you start getting deeper, things start to really open up. And again, we've overlaid Hastings on top of the Havron. Clearly, our advantage, as you can see, is Hastings at the surface. Havron, you've got to drill 400 metres just to get to the top of it. So cheap exploration for us compared to other parties. And we're obviously very pleased about that. It's good for us, good for our shareholders. We're not wasting money on super deep drill holes. Now, I'll just touch on our last two projects, Kiwikura. This is an IOCG style copper project. It was drilled back in mid-2000s by Ashburton Minerals, limited drilling. They identified fairly significant widths of modest copper mineralisation along this zone through here. Our geophysicists have since developed a suite of targets which appear to be offset to that drilling. We believe they overlay what we think is a deeper source adjacent to that drilling. We've got 3,000 metres of RC and diamond drilling planned for that. Again, the government has jumped in and they're assisting us with that diamond drilling. And we hope to be out here second quarter of next year onwards, again, subject to permits and approvals in place to allow us to get out there. And just finally, our Laverton Gold project, smaller project, it's gold. Right next to the Laverton Township, right next to all the infrastructure you need, all these major deposits. We've done some 6,000 metres of air core drilling. We've identified a couple of targets, particularly along this banded iron formation. And our next phase is obviously to follow up some of this wide low-level gold with some deeper RC, testing the source of that at depth. This snapshot of our workflow. So we're sitting up here at the moment. But things are really going to start to kick off from next quarter of next year. Results of our phase 2 drilling at South Telfer will probably come in around here. So there'll be some news flow between now and the end of the first quarter or the end of January. And this is why you should invest in Rincon. Thank you.
West Australian-focused explorer Accelerate Resources, or AX8, is off to a solid start with its strategy to focus on critical metals for the electrification of global economies, such as manganese. Accelerate's founder and managing director arrived from China 17 years ago with nothing but a suitcase and a burning desire to make a difference in the mining industry. She now heads up one of the ASX most up-and-coming high-grade manganese developers. As we say, welcome to Yaxi Zihan. Welcome, Long.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, everyone. Accelerate is an emerging manganese company. So we have the aim of supplying high-grade manganese to China's steel and the battery industries. So what is manganese? So I have a rock in my hand. So this is collected from the surface of our manganese project. So manganese is actually wide used in the steelmaking industry. So, and also used in other specialized, to making other specialized steels. So in the steelmaking industry, manganese is irreplaceable, which means without manganese, there's no steel. 90% of the manganese is used in this area. The other increased use of the manganese is in the exciting battery industry. So both the Tesla and the Volkswagen has recently started a huge investment and a plan to increase the manganese use in their battery chemistry mix. So global demand for manganese is increased. So electrifications and the electric vehicle market is forecast to grow from today's 10 million vehicle on the road to about 200 million 200 million vehicles in 2030. And the new generations of EV batteries is high in nickel and manganese. So in China, the country is close to my heart. So we currently produce of 73% of global EV batteries. The global demand of the manganese, therefore, is also on the way up and driven by the constructions and ramp up to pre-COVID-19 level. And this brings us to our manganese project in the Pilbara region. So the Braeside West project is located 66 kilometers to the closest rail and about 110 kilometers and connect to the national highway and then through to Marblebat to Port Hedland. The project location underpins the future success. It is close to the infrastructure and a shorter logistic distance. And this translates a potential low carbon cost and emission cost. The Braeside project is underexplored and with a large tenement area. And it has the right geology to find the high-grade manganese deposit. The project is 70 kilometers north and along strike of the high-grade Woody manganese mine. And the Woody mine is a high-grade and in one of the previous report that we can find, it has a historical reserve of 30 million ton, up to 40%. The Woody mines also comprise about 40 smaller deposits, and even after 70 years today, it's still in production. And its annual production is about 1 million ton at the moment. So Woody mine has been well researched and studied. Our exploration at the Braeside West will focus on the Woody manganese models, which is based on hydrothermal mineralization system. So far we have access to the historical report and the industry expertise within this field. And we have contacted and utilized the geologists who have walked and mapped the areas in the last 30 years. And this will assist us to shorten the discovery process. So in the recent data review and the field work we have conducted, confirmed that the Braeside West does have the potential for Woody style deposit, and which is structurally controlled and with the surface mineralization and forming the caps on the ridges. And we collected the historical drill results and confirmed the high grade potential. So for the next 12 months will be a very busy and exciting period for Team Accelerate. So we wanted to answer 3 key questions in the next 12 months. So what grade and yield do we have? What is the size potential? And what is our final product to the market? And in order to answer those 3 questions, we have a planned a systematic exploration approach for the next 12 months. Number 1, data is definitely the key. So we will continue assemble and existing the data convert to 2D and 3D. And then followed by the ground truthing and plan the first phase of diamond drilling. So this will help us to better understand the geology, also collect the samples for the metallurgical test. So we'll have the R3 drill program to follow and test those priority targets and then start look at the size potential. And we will have at the second half of 2022 also plan the follow-up drilling for any new targets identified and generated. So our next targets in this area is called Ripon Hills East. Ripon Hills East prospect is another underexplored manganese opportunity. So within the tenement, it has untested VTEM targets, and the tenement is largely underexplored. So in the last couple of months, we also picked up a lithium project in the areas. So those are contained about 3 tenements and targeting potential lithium, tin, and tantalite mineralizations. And these tenements are located close to our existing manganese exploration targets. So our plan is in the coming months to conduct the field mapping in the area, and in conjunction with activities with the company's planned East Pilbara manganese projects. The other assets within the portfolio is our Comet project. So this is 100% owned by Accelerate, and the project is located in the Murchison Goldfields. The package sits along strike from the Taka-Biena mining center. And these areas is recently renewed interest driven by Musgrave resource. So we have a plenty target to follow in 2022. And the plan is to get on the ground and follow with test drill and those priority targets. So in summary, so why invest in Accelerate? Accelerate story is quite simple. And we have a great values. We also present the great values to investors with a low EV and high quality projects and clear strategy and laser focused on developing the high grade manganese project. So we're currently sitting with 3.5 million cash in the bank. And we also have another 500,000 equivalent of equity investment in the TSXV listed carry rolls. So we're very well funded for the program planned for 2022. And another great assets we have is the contact and ability to find Chinese offtake parties for our manganese ore. So our booth number is number 51. And so I will be around. If you have any questions, please come around. Thank you.
Just a reminder before I introduce our next speaker that beautiful Esky is up for grabs. That 35-liter Yeti Esky is up for grabs. All you've got to do is to scan one of the balls at the bowl on the table and fill out the details, and you could win that because we'll be drawing it at 3 p.m. today. Rita Brooks is the chairperson and founder of the newly listed Tambura Metals. She joins us to introduce the company projects at Julimar North in the Wheatbelt and in the Pilbara, with a large landholding at Julimar. TMB has wasted no time getting on the ground and exploring for nickel, platinum, group elements, coal, gold, and copper. Welcome along, Rita.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce the projects at Tambora. We're newly listed. We listed in August. And the forward-looking statements. I'm just going to introduce the projects. When we started, we had 4 projects: Tambora, Chila, Julimar, and Achilles. Tambora and Chila are advanced gold projects. Russian Jack, we have been acquiring that project and extending it. It's a tin, tantalum, lithium project. And I'll first talk about the Pilbara exploration. It's advanced projects. They're historic gold at Tambora. We've got advanced drill information at Chila, and at the Pilbara in the last 10 years, there's been over 10 million ounces discovered. We all know the Pilbara for iron ore, but with the discovery of Hemi up to 6 million ounces, it shows that gold in granites has been overlooked, and it's a focus now. So the critical minerals portfolio, when we started at Julimar, we had 4 tenements, 2 granted and 2 applications. We now have 7 granted tenements and 4 application licenses. We've been on the ground doing a gravity survey, and that's completed recently, and we're waiting on those results. Russian Jack project expanded, and Achilles, a nickel PGE and copper project adjoining Olympia Nickel at Kohlrabi. Our key business fundamentals, we've got 16 million in the an EV, 6 million in the bank ready to put into the ground, and we've started work on all projects actually. We've expanded, we've got a new exploration manager, and where our share price has varied from 20 cents up to 35, and at the moment it's approximately 26, 25 cents. Sustainability, we've got a strong ESG fundamentals, and we do plan our work with minimum impact. We've been working with the Aboriginal heritage groups. We're doing heritage surveys. Over to Julimar. Oh. So at Julimar, we've got a large land holding in the purple. You can see where the Caravel deposit is. That's a recently announced PFS, and Chalice announced the Gonville deposit, and Caspin are at Yarrawinda. We're 10 kilometres from Yarrawinda with Magumba, and you can see that next to Caravel, the new Wongan Hills project is less than some of the areas, it's 3 to 5 kilometres from the Caravel. It's an area that hasn't been looked at all for nickel and PGEs. Previously, this area here has been not recognised at all as having potential for ultramafics, and what we've just the new information has highlighted this area as great potential. Over here, this was previously gold exploration with soils. We're assembling all the soil and geochemical data, and we'll be able to get on the ground now once the wheat has been harvested. We've developed the Bulgart East is in the centre there. That's the gravity survey completed there. Gravity survey completed here. That data will be interpreted at the moment. We should have results in the next 2 weeks. So the access agreements are in process, and noting that Chalice noted today that they've got a parallel mineralisation to the west of Gonville that they don't think is related to the Gonville deposit. It shows that this area is significantly underexplored, and we've got enough funding to aggressively commence exploration here. Bulgart, this was the first public data available that we assembled. The geophysicists pointed out the targets. You can see the location of Phil's Hill, and that's going into our boundary, into our tenement. We're planning to do, once we get the full gravity data from here, we're doing an EM survey, and on the left to the west is the township of Bulgart. Bulgart's been known as only a gold prospect, and again the highlighted new geology and southwest terrain information has shown this area to be also prospective for nickel and PGEs. Into Wongan Hills. The Wongan Hills area is it looked originally on the geology as going into granites, but where you can see the OP deposit, the OP is to the, no, I can go back. No, we'll leave this one. The OP deposit's to the west, and it's a gold, copper and molybdenum, and copper and molybdenum are the Bindi Bindi deposit as well. So you can see the location of Tambura's new project, the Wongan Hills South. So they're granted projects that we are going to be working straight on the ground as we speak. Up to the critical minerals, expanding the battery portfolio. Russian Jack's very interesting because there's known lithium and tantalum on the ground in prospects that are within our boundaries and to the to the east, we've identified from previous reports pegmatite swarms. So you can go to our website for more details of that project. And Achilles, the new magnetic data, we're going through the previous drill holes because nickel was the focus. They never really paid attention to the PGEs. So we're going through and looking over that work. Onto the Pilbara. Working in the Pilbara is now, it's an easy area to get to. 2 hours from Port Hedland down to Tambora and 1.5 hours from Paraburdoo to Chila. The Tambora Gold is similar to the Mount York in historic goldfield. No drilling except we did 1 lot of drilling in 2019, but other than that, there was only drilling in 1989. So assembling that data, we've got historic grades, we've got the drilling here. I'll just highlight where we ended up with at Western Chief. You've got gold at 2 metres at 21 grams there. And similar, Kushmati, there was a previous drilling of 10 metres at 10. We seem to have missed it there, but there's several layers of gold in quartz. No drilling has gone in between, and looking at the data at the moment that's being investigated. So we'll have those results from the geophysical interpretation shortly, which will actually help target the structures beneath the historic and alongside the workings. Over to Aboriginal heritage agreements are approved. We've got a heritage survey planned. Drilling approvals are in place, and we're speaking to drilling contractors to get on the ground at the Pilbara. The historic data, you can see the Federal Mine, 37 grams, Western Chief, 31 grams, World's Fair, 32 grams. So last drill hole at the Federal was 1898, not drill holes. Last information that I can find is since 1898. It's never been drilled. So that's going to be a whole new line of workings that we'll be working on shortly. We've got 70 kilometres at Chila on the Nanjalgardi Fault. Paulson's hosts nearly 900,000 ounces. Mount Olympus, 1.6 million ounces. The drill holes for Chila that we've assembled based on base metals and gold exploration. The area, you can go further south on the Nanjalgardi Fault, and there's another 2 million ounces at Capricorn. So we're looking at a fault that's hosting 6 million ounces, and the Chila area that we have is the drill holes for over 30 years information, but we've highlighted those that look as though they're there's gaps in the information. If you were looking for base metals, you didn't pay attention to some low-grade gold. So significant intercepts include 16 metres at 4.75, 12 metres at 3, of which there's 6 metres at 6 grams. It's a shallow 88 metres and 35 metres. We've got drilling approval here, and again, we're getting drilling quotes. So I'll just show you on an interpreted mineralisation, you've got the 6 metres at 10 grams on the western side, and then in between 3 metres of no drilling at all. And Electric Dingo belongs to Northern Star. It's a small resource that they have, and it's outside of our tenure, but we're interested in this 7 kilometres that's undrilled and a lot of work to do. This is our proposed planned work, getting on the ground at Julimar and on the ground drilling at Tambora, interpreted mineralisation and the reporting from the geophysics, Chila, getting on the ground drilling, and Achilles, where we're going to go back over that work. We've started that already and highlighting a new drill program there. And then we'll be access agreements and straight into Julimar. We can work on the ground because most of the farmers have taken the wheat off now. So that really gives us the opportunity now to be aggressive in the next quarter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. Graham Drew is the Managing Director of OzQuest Limited, which is exploring for porphyry copper and iron oxide copper gold deposits in Peru and Australia, as well as nickel copper deposits in WA. Welcome along, Graham.
Thanks, Jerry. And thanks to the RIU for this opportunity to update you on the company's progress over the past 12 months. Congratulations to RIU for its 200th conference. I've got a lot to get through, so I better get started. In November, we announced that our strategic alliance agreement with South32 had been extended for a further 2-year period up until December 2023. This is actually a great result for our shareholders, as what it does is effectively underwrite our exploration spend for the next 2 years and provides our shareholders with a third-party endorsement of our projects. So don't just listen to me and our people, as well as demonstrating that, at least in their view, we're on the right track in our quest for tier 1 assets, which is our main game. With the agreement now extended, we can plan an active exploration program over the next 6 to 12 months in the knowledge that funds will be available for drilling. We don't have to go back to shareholders in all our 6 projects under the Strategic Alliance, 3 of them in Australia and 3 in Peru. Success in any one of them would significantly re-rate the value of the company. The standard disclaimer. We currently have 820 million shares on issue with a capex of about 15 million, with 4 million in the bank. This cash figure doesn't include additional funds required to complete our 2022 program, as these will be provided as and when required by South. As you can see, our share price has tapered over the past 3 to 4 months following the conclusion of our last drilling campaign, but this is about to change. In Queensland, we're in the process of finalising a follow-up drill program at our Hamilton project, where we intersected mineralised iron formation in our recent drilling with similar characteristics to the iron formation that hosts the ore at Osborne, just to the north, and possibly Cannington. Quite an encouraging drill hole. The area is under 200 metres of Cretaceous cover, which has meant a staged and systematic approach to exploration has been applied to effectively test the area, and this takes time. As you can see, most of our drilling on the right has been in the southern part of the area where we focused our initial attention for good reason. But this year we sighted our first drill hole into the northern prospect, which provided us with significant encouragement. Our first hole, which tested the obvious discrete mag anomaly that you can see, intersected upwards of 50 metres of mineralised ironstone and some BIF within a possible fold closure near the bottom of the drill hole. Subsequent downhole EM surveys and structural measurements on core has resulted in nearby targets being identified for further drilling. This was supposed to have been completed this year. We had the rig on site, but the recent rains in northwest Queensland hit our operations before we really got started. So as it stands now, further drilling at Hamilton is scheduled for April, May next year once access is possible. In WA, we have 6 projects we're working on, 2 which are currently under the Alliance. Drilling at Balladonia in the Fraser Range is planned for February next year, and definition of drill targets at Morrissey in the Narrier terrain is at an advanced state, which I'll get into shortly. Of the company's new projects shown in green, Moura is a nickel copper PG project with similarities to the Chalice Julimar discovery. Mount Davis, we're looking for lead zinc in a similar stratigraphic position to Rumble's recent discovery in the Errahidi Basin, but in an area of more intense structure. and Jubilee is a nickel copper prospect within an untested flood basalt terrain east of Fraser Range. We'll see what happens there. We're hopeful that all these will become new opportunities under the Alliance as we advance them towards the drilling stage. So a quick look at Baladonia. The potential for IOCGs, iron oxide copper gold and Broken Hill type deposits similar to those found in northwest Queensland has been recognised and will be tested by drilling in 2022. We've completed detailed magnetic surveys and up to a dozen targets have been highlighted for testing, which Richard outlined. Aircore drilling in 2021 across one of these, the Tea Tree prospect on the right, intersected a mineralised ironstone sequence, what we think is ironstone sequence, with highly anomalous multi-element geochemistry, including anomalous lead, zinc, moly, tin, cadmium, over probably 15 metres in the only hole that penetrated through to bedrock. The other Aircore holes all stopped within 10, 15 metres by silica, a siliceous zone. The subsequent gravity survey confirmed a 2 to 3 milligauss anomaly over the magnetics where we did the drilling, and the likelihood of a thickened iron formation, probably due to structural complications in the vicinity of the anomalous drill holes. Diamond drilling of the coincident mag, gravity and geochem anomalies is planned for February, as I said, following a successful application to government for financial support under their exploration incentive scheme. Success here could open up quite a large area for exploration. The Harms Lake project is a different story. Here we're targeting an intrusive with similar magnetic characteristics to the Nova Bollinger nickel copper deposit located about 60 kilometres to the north. The intrusion is clearly visible as a distinct magnetic low, which is similar to the intrusions within the Fraser Range. And recent Aircore drilling has provided encouraging geochemistry, nickel, copper, chrome assays, suggesting an ultramafic host rock and an excellent potential for nickel copper sulfide in this area. A ground EM survey is currently underway to identify targets for drilling. If successful, haven't seen results, drilling at Harms Lake would also be completed in the new year, probably in February. Moving to our Morrissey project, there's quite a few of these. The discovery of the Julimar deposit just north of Perth by Chalice Mining sparked a bit of a pegging rush early last year. We were among those companies competing for ground, and by acting early managed to secure two projects within the now named West Yilgarn nickel copper PGE province. Moora, which is just north of Julimar, and Morrissey further north within the Narria terrain. Moora is within the agricultural land and is taking a little longer to evaluate for some obvious reasons. However, work at Morrissey has accelerated over the past few months to the stage where we are now defining targets for drilling. The magnetic targets at Morrissey are similar to those at Julimar and are scattered over an 80-kilometre strike length along the northwest margin of the Yilgarn, a favourable location for the occurrence of intrusive related nickel sulfide deposits. Helicopter EM surveys and follow-up soil sampling have highlighted 3 priority targets for initial interest. Other targets may come depending on results. Each is closely associated with strongly magnetic host rocks, with field evidence suggesting they are mafic to ultramafic in composition, similar to the host rocks at Julimar. The coincidence of anomalous nickel and copper with the EM anomalies has significantly upgraded these targets, with drilling at Morrissey now expected during the first half of 2022. Ground EM surveys have been initiated to optimise sites for drilling. I now move to our other favourite in Peru. We have 3 projects under the Strategic Alliance shown in red, a number of our own projects shown in green, which we hope to advance to new opportunity status under the agreement with South. In 2022, significant drill programs are planned within all 3 of the Alliance projects. starting with Los Otros down the bottom in December this year. That's about to happen in a few weeks, and moving to Serra de Fierro and Parcoy around the middle of the year, depending on government approvals, which we are currently seeking. The copper pedigree of southern Peru, where we have focused our efforts, is clearly evident in this slide. Certainly a number of mega deposits in the region. At Serra de Fierro, drilling this year within our tenement, which is off to the left, focused on testing the up-dip extent of copper mineralisation found during previous programs. Results of this drilling confirm the widespread nature of copper and did in fact find significant copper values at shallow depth, 30 odd metres at 0.5% copper from surface, but not in large enough quantities to be a clear tier 1 target, which under the Strategic Alliance continues to be our main focus. This possible resource has been parked for now, pending results of ongoing exploration in the adjoining areas. Drilling in the southern part of the concession this year also recognised the potential for porphyry copper associated with the development of advanced argillic alteration, so-called lithocap, within an east-west structural corridor that defines the contact between batholithic intrusions to the south and younger volcanics to the north, a common geological setting for large-scale deposits along the coastal belt of South America, a great place to be. A program of geological mapping and systematic rock chip sampling was subsequently conducted within our tenements east of Serra de Fierro, resulting in at least 8 porphyry targets being identified for drilling. There's quite a bit of cover, and drilling's the best way to go. Anomalous pathfinder elements, including moly, bismuth, tellurium, arsenic, as well as recognition using routine TerraSpec analysis of abundant pyrophyllite, a high temperature indicator mineral in porphyry systems, has been used to outline these high priority targets. 3 of them, T1, T2, and T4 are shown, I'll show in more detail in the next slide. T1 and T2 occur along the structural contact between the intrusive rocks to the south and volcanics to the north. Both areas contain extensive outcrops of advanced argillic alteration, shown in yellow, but much smaller areas containing pyrophyllite and anomalous pathfinders, which are thought to reflect porphyry centres within the broader alteration halos. So we think we've defined our targets. Outcrop within T4 is more limited than the other target areas, but still contains significant quantities of pyrophyllite and anomalous pathfinders, suggesting multiple intrusions or possibly a large porphyry complex in this area. Highly anomalous copper values up to 0.8% copper have been found within the limited outcrop in T4. Magnetics over T1 and T4 has provided additional targets for drilling, at least consideration for drilling. Magnetic anomalies within a porphyry environment often reflect the potassic alteration zone within a porphyry where copper is most likely to be found. Planning is in process for all 3 of these to be drill tested, probably a 5,000-6,000 metre program as part of next year's drilling campaign. At Parcoy, which is 50 k's up the road from Serra de Fierro, the maiden drilling program was completed this year, providing proof of concept for manto or replacement style copper mineralisation within the volcanics, at least 500 metres from the main feeder structure, which we can recognise. Parcoy is located within a defined IOCG belt in the south of Peru and occurs along trend from Mina Justa, which is a classic manto style copper deposit that's currently being developed. The initial drill program tested, as you see on the right-hand slide, the right-hand of the slide, that tested the outer limits of the prospect, and this was mainly due to the ease of access in some fairly rugged terrain, which tends to cost a bit of money if you're going to push it harder. The prospect itself was secured under title when a strong potassic anomaly, which you see on the right, outlined by our airborne survey was found to occur along strike from copper reported at a nearby prospect, Los Chapitos. In 2021, 10 RC holes were completed with significant copper occurring in 4 of them. The drill section shown top right demonstrates a relatively shallow northerly dip of the mineralisation, parallel to layering within the volcanics, and again 500 metres odd from the feeder zone. The andesite in the hanging wall was potassically altered, which explains the airborne response, along with highly anomalous moly in the footwall provides marker horizons to help interpret surface geochemical data and outline a priority target zone for further testing. Infill sampling is currently underway within the central zone, and further drilling testing of this prospect is scheduled for mid this year once results of the sampling have been received. Nearly there, Jerry. And finally, at Los Otros, initial drilling is due to start in mid to late December this year, all things going according to plan. We've received the necessary permits and plan to complete 3 to 5 drill holes, fairly wide space, 1,000 to 1,500 metres, depending on results. The targets are defined by areas of lithocap containing anomalous pathfinders, which, as discussed earlier, are considered prime targets for buried porphyries. The prospect is located close to some of Peru's major copper mines, so the possibility that Los Otros may be another one has been driving this program. Age dating of alteration within Target 1 found similar ages to the nearby porphyry deposits, supporting our concept. So in conclusion, as you can see from this table, we have a highly variable and very active program ahead of us, both in Australia and Peru, over the next 6 to 12 months, with serious amounts of drilling in both countries to be funded under our alliance with South32. I hope you'll agree, an exciting time for our shareholders. This has been relatively quick and a lot of projects. If you would like more detail or a better understanding, come and see us in our booth 33 if you haven't already done so, and we're more than happy to discuss them with you. So thanks again. Thanks for attending.
Thanks, Graham. Moho Resources is a diversified nickel and gold explorer, boldly exploring for the future. The company has accumulated exciting nickel exploration projects across Western Australia. It has defined a gold mineral resource estimate at its Silver Swan North project and discovered a new mineral province at its Empress Springs project in Queensland. Commercial Director Ralph Winter is passionate about Moho Resources and its exploration prospects for the future, and will share the exciting developments of these projects. Welcome, Ralph.
Oh, thanks, Jerry. Thanks, RIU and Vertical Events, for putting on another fantastic show. And thanks for everybody for staying and listening to the talks today. So, as Jerry said, yeah, we're exploring for a greener future, as we've now dubbed it. I suppose what we've done is we've reinvigorated our nickel strategy. We've been a gold and nickel, unashamedly a gold and nickel explorer for some time. Been around for about 3 years since we first listed. And I guess we've been a bit more focused on the gold, and now we're sort of pushing a bit more into the nickel again. So I'll go through why that's exciting for us and why it should be exciting for you as investors moving forward. Standard disclaimer. Please feel free to look it up on the website and read through it at your own leisure. Just a bit of a snapshot. We're currently around 6 cents, so a little bit above that at the moment. Top 20 shareholders, around 29% of the company. We only got about 125 million shares on issue for a company that's been around for 3 years. It's still fairly tightly held. Market cap of around 7.5 million, and we've just completed a capital raising in November, about $1.5 million. A little snapshot of the board and the technical team. We've spent much time getting a very high quality technical team together, which includes employees as well as consultants. But in terms of the board, we're spearheaded by Mr. Terry Streeter, who's obviously been in nickel for a long time and had various successes with Jubilee and Western Areas. And Shane Sadley, as our managing director, has been in the industry for a long time in junior companies, and myself as well. But the technical team is really where the differential is. We have a fantastic technical team, and they're doing some phenomenal work for us, and they have done so for the last 3 years. So a little snapshot of where we're at. So we've got 3 key projects that we've been focusing on. So we've got Empress Springs, Far North Queensland. We're probably more focused in WA at the moment, and I guess that's predominantly because of COVID restrictions that we've had over the last year or so. So we've got Silver Swan North, which is right next to Poseidon Silver Swan Nickel Mine. Burracoppin out in the wheat belt, which is about 20 k's west of Ramelius's Edna May Gold Mine. And in a new deal that we've just struck with a group called Whistlepipe, we've also gone and accumulated a series of projects that they've targeted. Whistlepipe were closely involved with the original targeting of the Gonaville Julimar discovery. And so we believe that there's some fantastic upside there to be held. I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So why nickel? Lots of people are coming out saying, why nickel? Why now? And look, it's very simple. If you look at the forecasts, the future additional nickel supply required for the demand that's going to be there just isn't there at the moment. Nickel prices are sound and seem to be relatively steady. And I think it's going to prove to be a very interesting market moving into this future of electric cars and so on moving forward as well. So that's why we're there. And the other interesting thing is that because we're right next to Poseidon's Silver Swan nickel mine, they've got to feed the mill strategy at the moment. We believe that it's an opportune time for us to prove up as much nickel as we can and see if we can do a deal with Poseidon to get it through there. So nickel, copper, PGEs. I guess the primary focus is nickel, but it doesn't preclude the other minerals at the moment. We've broken down our strategy into various phases. I suppose the first phase was what assets do we currently own that we potentially have nickel prospectivity on. The most obvious one, obviously, like I said, was up next to Poseidon. So Poseidon's just in here. We own all this ground through here now. The dotted green lines are applications. So we've got this one down here, which we're expecting to be granted in the not too distant future. And we've just started a drill program there. The stage 1 drilling has just begun probably about 2 days ago. And we're doing some RC drilling at the Omra deposit, which we have a EM conductor in there. And we're basically looking to see if we can prove up if there's nickel in that area. What we will do is we'll follow up on that with the diamond tail, which we're awaiting confirmation of a diamond drill rig to do that. So there's no outcrop, no outcrop or previous drilling. And we're very excited about where this could go for us. This is co-funded, at least the Omra part of the drill program is co-funded by the WA government under the co-funded drilling program. So thank you to the WA government. After that, we move on to the WISE target, which is up to the north there a little bit, which is our stage 2 of our drilling. There is some historical drilling there, RC drilling with grades of over 1% in nickel. And then a further stage on that is the Dukes program, which is a little bit further to the north. That's an interesting one because it's one that's been barely touched, but goes along about a 3 kilometer ultramafic zone there. And there is a little bit of nickel values in historical sampling, but it's very limited. So we're quite excited about what that could yield for us as well. So look, it's a very interesting area to be, and we feel like we're in an opportune position to basically find as much nickel as we can and see if we can do a deal with Poseidon on that. Phase 2 of that nickel strategy was to amalgamate around where we currently have assets. We've just recently announced a deal with Yandal Resources where we've acquired the nickel rights to 15 of their tenements that run along this ultramafic zone, which is border on the western side of our Silver Swan tenements, Silver Swan North. That deal is in the process of being finalized. We got a bit of due diligence to do and so on, but we hope that'll be sorted out shortly. And once that's done, we can get out on the ground and do some work. We vended in these 4 little tenements here for the gold prospectivity. We still retain the nickel rights on that as well as a royalty. So we feel it's a very good deal for us and gives us fantastic exposure to additional nickel where we already are. So Like I said before, the deal we did with Whistlepipe is a very interesting one. Their experience, it was from targeting the Gonneville Julimar deposit. They basically have their own consultancy that they've set up and targeting similar lines as to what they've done with Gonneville Julimar. So what they did was they put together a package, and we went and we did a deal with them to acquire that package from them, which was an amalgamation of applications, which we've now gone and pegged under the deal, and one granted tenement, which is the Manjimup deposit down here. And there'll be a lot of news flow coming out of that in the not too distant future, but we'll start with focusing on Manjimup once the deal is solidified at the AGM in mid-January. So very interesting deposit there, and yeah, it'll look very interesting, I think, moving forward. Phase 4 of the nickel strategy. As an exploration company, we're always looking at other opportunities as well. We're keeping our eyes open and in discussion with various parties as to, you know, what other potential nickel assets we could bring into the fray as well. And hopefully, you know, in the not too distant future, there may be some additional news that we can put out on that as well. Silver Swan North Gold. So we've, like I said, we've been focusing on the gold for a little while now. Silver Swan North is a fantastic location. We're close to Kalgoorlie. Mining infrastructure is fantastic. And we've got potential early stage cash flow at the East Samson Dam deposit, which is just in here. We've just completed a few months ago a air core program over the Tyrrells Hodges zone up this way. And those results are due to be released to the market shortly. And, you know, we're obviously hoping that we can get those into production as soon as possible, at least the East Samson Dam one. So we're in the process of going through the mining studies and discussion with potential mining partners and toll treatment partners as well. So there'll be a lot of news flow from that moving forward. That's just a snapshot of the resource. So yeah, I won't labor too much on that. It's a smallish resource, but ultimately it'll generate a nice bit of cash flow for the company that we can then talk about and you know, generate some cash flow that we can push into other exploration efforts. Like I say, we're close to a lot of infrastructure. I won't labor too much on that, but we're close to about 11 different gold processing plants within about 100 kilometers. And we're advancing it towards gold production. So yeah, please note these gold bars are not representative of any gold produced or owned by Moho at this point in time. Like I said, all the boxes have been ticked. Flora and fauna has been done. Aboriginal heritage survey has been completed. We've got excellent metallurgical results, around 95, 96%. Maiden JORC resource has been completed, and the pit optimization studies are currently underway. We're waiting for the results of that, hopefully probably early in the new year. And like I said, mining partnerships and toll milling arrangements are currently in discussion. Barracoppin's another very interesting one. Like I said, it's in the WA wheat belt. We're only 20 kilometers west of Ramelius's Edna May gold mine. We originally started with just a couple of tenements up here. The middle one is a 70% joint venture with IGO. All the other green ones are 100% owned by Moho. We've expanded our tenure quite significantly since we first started. We completed a diamond program over here at Crossroads a few months back, and we're expecting the results from that shortly to be released to the market as well. And there's a lot of additional prospectivity. We're also looking at what we've got in our other tenements that's around that, and you know, what we can do with that moving forward. But yeah, keep an eye on that one. There'll be some news flow from that as well. We've basically indicated that there's several other targets. Crossroads is that little blob in there, but there's about 4 other priority targets around on our tenements that we're currently having a look at to see how we can advance that. Empress Springs. So Empress Springs is a very big project in far north Queensland. We have about 3,500 square kilometers there. We've defined 3 different mineralized zones. We've had work done by Dr. John Ronsky, which interpreted these transcrustal structures, as he so dubs them, that runs basically straight through our ground here. So based on the original work, which was on these 3 tenements, we basically picked up as much of the ground as we could along those structures. It's essentially a gold project, but there does seem to be a lot of other mineralization there and a lot of work to be done. We had a fantastic hydrogeochem program that we did a little while back. And basically the gold in water sampling that was done, dubbed by CSIRO as top 1% of results in Australia as far as they've seen. And we're basically looking to go back and do some follow-up on that. So the Queensland government have granted us $200,000 to go back and follow up on that program, which will be a combination of drilling and then further hydrogeochemical sampling. We have had a little bit of trouble, as you're probably aware, with COVID, trying to get a rig in there, but also now the wet season's hitting. So the work on that probably won't happen until the wet season ends early next year. And then we hope to get back in there and do some more work as well. So the summary or the key takeaways from your point of view, we're exploring for a greener future, as I said, but we're really targeting nickel copper PGEs. Our exploration strategy gives us exposure to some potential early discoveries and success. We do hope to have some cash flow from East Samson Dam in the not too distant future as well. Proximity to gold and nickel infrastructure wherever we are, pretty much. And you know, the WA environment is really the premier destination for PGE, nickel, copper, gold, as far as we're concerned, and I'm pretty sure everyone here would agree. And very mining friendly environments, both WA and Queensland. And look, it's an investment opportunity. We're less than 10 million market cap currently. Any one of these holes and results that we're going to be releasing, you know, could very well, you know, increase our share price. So it's a great opportunity for anybody to get involved that wants to get involved with the company. Well, thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ralph. Mount Monger Resources is a junior exploration company with a portfolio of gold, nickel, and rare earth elements exploration projects located in the goldfields here in Western Australia. Joining us to share the company's project details and the next steps is Managing Director Lachlan Reynolds. Welcome, Lachlan.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a successful conference and enjoying the presentations. I've followed the theme of resurgence here, titling my presentation Resurgence of Exploration in Key Western Australian Goldfields. Obviously, we're not the only ones, but we are one of the newer ones. And this has really been our first opportunity to talk about the company and its strategy going forward. So as a new company, we've set ourselves some fairly high standards, both technically and with respect to ESG. I'm sure you'll agree that that's a list of fine values that we can aspire to. And we do, of course, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where Mount Monger Resources will be operating. And we understand that they're going to be a large part of our future success. Now, the investment opportunity for Mount Monger Resources. We are a very new company. We listed only in July. We are an exploration company. I guess we arguably have more of a gold focus, but we also have exposure to a number of other opportunities in our portfolio. We have made an effort to take up strategic projects in prolific and highly endowed goldfields here in Western Australia. We have geologically prospective targets with limited historical work, but enough to give us some very high profile exploration targets. Personally, I'd say we've had some early exploration success, which I will go into a little bit more as we go through the presentation. And it's given us a plan for 2022 of an ongoing active drilling campaign and very much a results-driven news flow for our investors. We're actively acquiring new projects. In fact, we signed an option agreement just recently for a new project, which again, I'll talk about. And we have fortuitously a very experienced both technical and financial and commercial management team who will be guiding the company as it evolves. We too are a good buying opportunity, very low market capitalisation at the moment, and lots of prospects for discovery and for re-rating. Standard disclaimers, which I'll leave you to read at your leisure. Now to our project portfolio. This slide was originally entitled just projects, but we are expanding, as I said. We're looking for areas where there are strong exploration opportunities in prolific goldfields. We've taken up now 3 areas. Two that we listed on were at East Laverton and Mount Munga, our namesake. Both of those areas, obviously very highly endowed goldfields. Mount Munga, only about 70 kilometres from Kalgoorlie and adjacent to Silver Lakes operations. The East Laverton area, a number of very large, long-lived gold operations, as well as rare earths and other opportunities. That's a more conceptual project, a lot of blue sky, an elephant country where we can hopefully make a significant discovery in areas of very limited historical work. Finally, the Albion project, which is about 25 kilometres to the south of Norseman. That's the new area where we have an option, high-grade historical workings that have never been tested by drilling, and potential for certainly a locally significant gold resource with walk-up drilling targets. So I've got a couple of slides on each of these projects to take you through. And hopefully that'll give you a flavour of our exploration strategy and also the opportunities that we have. The first being Mount Munga. Close to Kalgoorlie, a historical goldfields with a long production history in its own right. For orientation, we are immediately adjacent to Silver Lakes Randall's Mill. The Mount Belcher's mining centre lies to the east of us, and the Daisy mining complex just up the road back towards Kalgoorlie. So we're blessed with excellent access here and great mining infrastructure in a historical goldfield which has had a significant amount of exploration dating back to the late 1980s. And in fact, I was involved here working for Western Mining back at that time. So the wheel has turned and I'm back in some old territory. That historical exploration from the late 80s has left us with a legacy of both some known resources at Mount Munga, but also a very large number of prospect areas that typically have had a fairly cursory evaluation and shallow drilling, little beyond 60 metres of depth. And so we have the luxury of looking at a wide variety of targets that we can undertake a re-evaluation on. And there are certainly some high-grade hits, but in many cases, the previous explorers walked away from them for whatever reason. It was a product of the time. On top of all that, there has been the recent discovery by Lefroy Exploration of the Burns project, and that, of course, has reinvigorated the exploration for the entire area. And I'm just going to zoom in on one area, which is the Duchess of York, and show you a little bit of the work that we've been doing in that area. This was an obvious one for us to target early. We drilled this straight after listing in August. And the Duchess has a significant resource, historical resource outlined by these drill holes in the blue. And we, as you can see, have conducted a drilling program that was both within that historical resource and also looking to extend it. What we found was that there was an abundant amount of gold. Many of those drill holes intersected gold mineralised structures. The gold mineralisation now that we know extends over about another 500 metres further to the northwest. And there were a series of subsidiary structures which were also mineralised. The mineralisation is clearly still open to the south. And so we have a large area of interest here that will be an obvious target for us going forward. At the Mount Munga project also, we've been keen to expand some of our basic data sets. We recently released an announcement on our soil geochemistry. A large MMI soil survey was completed over a number of different prospect areas. And I'm focusing here on Kiaki Soaks, which gives you a flavour for the kind of results we got. The sampling identified some very large anomalies, and this is in the gold channel. These anomalies were both along structures that were already known. For instance, there was drilling here at Kiaki Soaks, and that corresponded to the anomalism. Also identified a number of brand new, previously unknown geochemical anomalies. And so we have a substantial amount of work to do, both following up on historical results, but also testing new structures that have been defined by the geochemistry, both here at Kiaki Soaks and then also on other prospect areas where the survey was undertaken. It was a bit of a surprise to me in some ways that soil sampling is still a highly effective way of doing a preliminary test at somewhere like Mount Munga, where there has been, there is such a legacy of historical information. The other project that we listed on was East Laverton. East Laverton, or Laverton region, as has been pointed out by some of the previous presenters, is a very prolific area with large gold mines. The area that we picked up is more conceptual greenfield type targets. There's certainly gold opportunities, and we believe there is certainly an opportunity to explore for deposits with similarities to Gruyere or perhaps the Tropicana, which lies to the southeast. We've picked up a very large area, about 3,000 square kilometres, and from north to south is well over 100 kilometres of strike length of prospective areas. It's not well explored for a mixture of reasons, largely because there is extensive cover, and because also for a long time has been the interpretation that the project area mainly was unmineralised and unprospective granites. Again, many of the previous presentations have talked about the fact that paradigm is changing. We know that the tenements contain inliers of metamorphosed greenstone rock, and we see potential for a wide variety of commodities: gold, rare earths, nickel, base metals, and potentially even for lithium, all relatively underexplored in this area. As far as our work program goes here, we've been on the ground undertaking reconnaissance. My exploration manager is currently out at Seahorse, which is this prospect here, undertaking soil sampling with his crew. And we're looking again to get a large amount of preliminary sampling and data collection completed prior to Christmas in order to set ourselves up for drilling campaigns in 2022. And let's go. There's just one aspect that I'd like to emphasise, and that's the fact that we have quite a significant rare earth anomaly in the northern part of the East Laverton tenements. The rare earths appear to be associated with a large radiometric anomaly in the thorium channel. We believe this is related to a particular intrusive of the area, and we've become aware of it through a number of historical air core drill holes, which were originally targeting gold, and also a number of rock chips which have been progressively collected over the area, which have shown that there is a substantial rare earth anomaly in the area. The grades are, as you can see from the details here, around about the 0.2 to 0.3% combined rare earth. So it is a low-grade anomaly, and the challenge ahead of us is to try and determine both what the rare earths are associated with geologically, and also to try and determine whether there are areas where they've been concentrated in a way that might make for a viable rare earth deposit. So we're in rare earth territory, with Mount Weld not being far away. It'd be highly premature to compare ourselves to that at this stage, but it's an exciting target for us to progress along with the other exploration that we're doing at the East Laverton area. Lastly, I'd just like to get a quick slide on the Albion project. Having done a deal on it recently, we haven't even got on the ground here yet. We've done most of our due diligence at a desktop level. What I find interesting about this one is that it's unusual in that it's an undrilled historical workings, so close to a well-known goldfield like Norseman. Access, as you can see, is great. This is the highway between Norseman and Esperance. And Albion consists of a cluster of historical workings that are located located on quartz lodes, high-grade quartz lodes. Historical production here was in the order of 19 grams per tonne, as reported. Those quartz lodes also have returned a number of very high-grade rock chips. We think that there is potential for multiple structures, giving and extrapolating from that the possibility of a larger gold resource, which would be exploitable by open pit. And so we're very keen to get in here and test the walk-up drilling targets that exist for gold. Also, we see in the database that there is potential for both nickel sulfides and for lithium-bearing pegmatites, all of which is largely unexplored historically. So this will also be another one for us going into 2022. I couldn't resist throwing this one in. This is a drone shot taken by the vendor of the project, who runs an earth-moving business, and he's been prospecting across Albion very successfully. You can see here in the centre of the photograph, these are some of the historical shafts which have been developed on the quartz lodes, and we will be obviously keen to get in, and we have the access and areas cleared for a drilling program pretty much immediately. And so finally, to wrap up our work program for 2022, it largely consists of drilling and preparing for drilling. We're well funded for this work. Our emphasis, or the emphasis on our work, is for making a discovery of some kind. I'm not really too particular about the flavour. We have priority drilling targets that we're ready to get into. We're well funded, and we have a busy year ahead. Finally, there's contact details. Please visit our website, and please visit our booth at number 22 if you want any more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lachlan. Question: do you want low risk, low cost, near-term copper production? If so, look no further than the Canamon 2 underground project in South Australia, which Hillgrove Resources is fast-tracking to become Australia's next copper gold mine. To tell the story, we welcome Managing Director Lachlan Wallace, who couldn't join us in person, but he did send us this presentation.
Hello, my name is Lachlan Wallace. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Hillgrove Resources. Today I'll be providing an update on the development of the Canamon 2 underground copper gold project. For those unaware of the project, Canamon 2 is located around 55 kilometres from Adelaide between the townships of Mount Barker and Murray Bridge. Hillgrove mined a series of open pits at Canamon 2 from 2011 to 2020, producing 137,000 tonnes of copper and 55,000 ounces of gold during this period. All of the mineralised lodes are very steeply dipping and continue below the base of the open pits. So over the past few years, we've been exploring the potential to develop an underground operation to chase these lodes to depth. Drilling to date has been really encouraging and confirms mineralisation with grades, width and continuity to support underground operations. So much so, in fact, that we've recently commenced an underground decline at Canamon 2 using transformational continuous mining technology, which promises to change the way in which the industry approaches underground development, making it safer, faster, more efficient and greener. Shown here is this technology in action, cutting the Canamon 2 portal in November, which I'll discuss as we start to work through this slide deck. So let's take a look. First, a very brief corporate snapshot. We have a market cap of around $63 million, with about $14 million in the tin following a recent heavily oversubscribed capital raise that gives the company an EV of only $49 million. We're fully funded to complete the drilling and technical studies to reach a final investment decision by mid next year, after which we expect to be mining and generating first copper sales by the end of 2022. The only other thing I want to point out on this slide is the carried forward tax losses of over $190 million, which become very valuable as we commence free cash flow from copper sales from next year, as well as $17 million in franking credits, which would enable the company to push out around $50 million in fully franked dividends. The Kanmantoo Underground is a very unique value proposition. It's a very low risk project with low capital intensity, quick speed to market, and plenty of resource upside. The operation is fully permitted and enjoys strong support from the local Kanmantoo and Callington communities. All the infrastructure we need is in place, including a 3.6 million tonne per annum processing plant that's being maintained ready for a fast restart, and a permitted and operating tail storage facility with ample storage capacity. And it's this infrastructure, coupled with the close proximity of the underground loads, which intersect the decline only 40 metres from the portal that you saw in the initial slide, that equate to a very low cost and short time period to first copper production. In addition to this, the technical risk is very low. The mineral loads are the same ones that have been mined and processed for the past decade in the open pit. It's the same geology, the same geotech, the same metallurgy. It's essentially just a restart with a different mining methodology. And over 17,000 metres of drilling this year alone has demonstrated that the mineral loads extend up to 500 metres below the base of the pit and remain open at depth. In addition, in November, we launched a further 16,000 metre drill program to expand the resource ahead of the planned restart next year. I've mentioned the existing infrastructure already and the benefit this provides in reducing timeframes and the capital cost of first copper production. But in addition, at 3.6 million tonnes per annum, the processing capacity was scaled to match the open pit production profile and is far greater than the expected annual production from the underground, at least initially. And this puts Hillgrove in a very unique position to be able to quickly respond to changing copper price environments and scale up productivity by optimizing the head grade to maximize the value of the mineralized resource. And we can do this without incurring any additional permitting or capital expenditure. As this zero cost optionality to respond to changing commodity prices to get the most out of the ore body that's unique to Kanmantoo and very valuable. Drilling is predominantly focused on the Kavanagh lode system below the main open pit. As you can see, we've had some exceptional drill results, including over 170 metres at 1% copper, which was followed up shortly thereafter with another 166 metres at 0.9% copper, 70 metres to the south. These are aggregated intersections, which are made up of multiple higher grade lodes in the order of 10 to 30 metres in width at 1 to 3% copper. And these higher grade zones are interspersed with lower grade mineralisation halos, which really then demonstrates the potential to materially increase the mining inventory through a lower grade bulk mining approach, which, as I talked about in the previous slide, the mill has plenty of capacity to process without any additional capital expenditure. Also importantly, the image on the right illustrates that many of the drill hole intersections are outside of the previous mineral resource estimate, which is shown in the red and blue blocks. And as such, I expect that these drill results will translate into a material increase in the resource base when the model is released to the public in the next couple of weeks. The drilling results also highlight the potential to grow the resource even further as we target the down dip and strike extensions, both of which remain open. This image is a long section of the known resources at Kanmantoo. As before, most of the 17,000 metre drill program that we've undertaken this year alone has been to infill and expand the Kavanagh resource, which is shown here in a green zone below the main pit, with limited strike and depth extension drilling, really just to demonstrate that the ore zones continued. And we have now demonstrated that these extend at least 500 metres below the base of the open pit and still remain open at depth. This is some 800 to 900 metres now below surface. But this is only a fraction of the underground potential. There is plenty of opportunities to bring these other known loads into the mine schedule over time with additional drilling. The current 16,000 metre drill program that we've just commenced will focus on firming up some of these work areas with a view to increase the annual throughput productivity such that we can better utilise the existing mill capacity. The targeted drill areas in the 16,000 metre program are Southwest Kavanagh and Spitfire, which sit immediately south of the main Kavanagh zones. Drilling this year demonstrated that these zones both extend at least 130 metres below the base of the pit at mineable grades and widths, and they remain open at depth. And given their close proximity to the Kavanagh lodes, these lodes would be mined from the same decline infrastructure as Kavanagh, and as such, they represent an opportunity to add mining inventory into the plan for very low incremental costs. Further to the south, we have Nugent, which is a satellite pit that was mined in 2015 to a depth of approximately 100 metres. The Nugent zone has always been characterised by a higher grade gold tenor, including 12 metres at 2.2% copper and almost 8 grams per tonne gold. But it's typically 8 to 15 metres wide, with copper grades ranging from 1 to 2% and gold 1 to 2 grams per tonne. Drilling below the pit demonstrates these lodes continue at least 200 metres below the base of the pit and again are open at depth and along strike. Unit's about 150 metres of development from the main pit. So again, relatively low capital to get established. And as a separate work area, it represents an opportunity to increase the annual production by establishing a second mining area that could run in parallel with the main Kavanagh lodes. And finally, North Kavanagh is an area that was mined as part of the upper levels of the open pit. It was not the primary focus, and the open pit due to its steep dipping nature and relatively narrow intersections, which made the strip ratios really too high for open pit mining, but they're perfect for underground, and the very short development distances enable fast, low-cost development. Again, some very nice early intersections ranging from 7 to 9 metres in width, at 1.8 to 2.1% copper with around a half gram per tonne gold credit. As a separate decline initially, North Kavanagh provides opportunities to increase annual productivity and operational flexibility. So as you can see, the theme of this new 16,000 metre drilling program is to establish additional mining inventory to increase the annual throughput such that we can more effectively use the mill capacity as we commence the underground from next year. As I highlighted at the top of the presentation, the decline of the Kavanagh ore load system is already underway. The decline enables us to establish multiple underground drilling platforms to further the underground drilling program, including stope definition drilling, which is on the critical path to first ore production. Stope definition drilling, illustrated here in red, increases drill density, which increases the geological confidence and thereby reduces the project risk, which increases then our ability to debt finance the capital development stage. In addition, the decline doubles as future mine access, which reduces time, cost, and risk associated with the underground startup. The decline is a very exciting milestone for the Kanmantoo underground, which ultimately brings forward the potential restart of copper production and further reduces what was already a very low-cost mine development. The portal in the initial 500 metres of decline is being cut with the Komatsu MC51 continuous mining machine, which utilises Komatsu's Dynacut technology. The decline will be developed under trial conditions with a view to demonstrate the commercial viability of hard rock mechanical cutting machines. Mechanical cutting has the potential to revolutionise the underground mine development process by making underground operations safer, faster, more cost-effective and greener. And all this is being done with minimal cash outflow to Hillgrove through the combination of a $2 million grant from the South Australian Government and deferred and contingent payment terms from Komatsu, which sees no payments until the underground is funded, and thereby Hillgrove are able to put this decline in place with minimal cash outflow. So looking at the timeline, the grey bars are complete, orange remains to first copper production. We're currently underway with the underground decline as well as the 16,000 metre drill program and expect to be in a position to make a decision on the underground by mid-2022 and all going well, start the capital development, which will be a very short period before commencing ore production shortly thereafter. In terms of immediate news flow, the mineral resource estimates currently being updated to include the 17,000 metre drill program that was recently completed, will be released in the next couple of weeks, along with a study which highlights the excellent project economics. In summary, the Kanmantoo underground presents a low risk, low cost, near-term production opportunity, plenty of upside with copper prices expected to remain high as the world continues to decarbonise, and plenty of exploration upside to increase both mine life and annual production potential. With all the capital infrastructure and permitting already in place and bullish outlook for copper, Hillgrove is well positioned to establish Australia's next copper mine. And with an EV of less than $50 million, Hillgrove represents exceptional value. Thank you. Some disclaimers.
It's very generous of you to provide applause for a recording. You can let them know you did that earlier. Okay, time for morning tea, and we will be back at 11:30. Don't forget in the meantime to go scan your balls. They're out there. You could win yourself that fabulous esky. It'll be drawn today at 3 p.m.